It all started with a story.
I moved in this country. I had $6 in my pocket at that point. So my story is a story of destiny, of how things are destined to be. It's a story of God.
Kuda is passionate about telling the African story, not just because it's a nice thing to do, but because it's a necessary thing to do.
If you don't tell your story, someone else will. And half the time, they won't tell it as it is. For anyone who wants to be a storyteller, the first point of call is to understand and know your story. Get the facts right. Storytelling is an art. You then have to find the right way to tell the story, the right audience, because you can have a very good story, but if you can't execute, it won't hit that mark.
While many see competition, Kuda thrives in collaboration.
If you want to start a fire, you need sticks. And if one stick is ignited, the whole sticks will then catch the fire.
Kuda believes the perception of limited resources and opportunities lead a lot of Black entrepreneurs to compete rather than collaborate.
It creates the atmosphere of competition. Desperation makes brothers fight against brother, sister against sister, bad-mouthing brother against brother. And this is what I've witnessed.
How do we foster collaboration within the African community?
Collaboration works if
media entrepreneur, creative storyteller, and community builder, this is Kuda Derera, and this is Critical Factor.
Kuda, it's so good to have you here on Critical Factor. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much for having me.
No,
it's good to be here.
It's my pleasure, bro. It's my pleasure. The moment we met at the event, I think a couple of months ago, I think was one of the things I said, we're definitely doing something again. I need you on my set because of what you do. And maybe I shouldn't preempt myself because that's part of what we're going to talk about. You know, the concept of collaboration and working together as Black entrepreneurs and things like that. But before we do, to that person who's watching who doesn't know you, why do you think this conversation will be important for them to watch?
This is very important for people to watch. Why? Because it's going to be talking about the truth. It's going to be talking about the future, and it's going to be reflecting on the past and how best we can move forward as a people, firstly, and how to navigate the media, which is a central part of our life, and how we can manipulate situations around communication for the betterment of our people, especially those within the diaspora community in the UK.
Okay. The diaspora. Tell us a bit about your background. I mean, you've already talked about the media. So for anyone who doesn't know, you run a media company, which we will come to as well. Right. But tell us a bit about your background and growing up. What was that like for you? Where was that? How was that like?
I came from a family of 5, which is 3 boys and 2 girls. So I'm the last born, and I share it with my twin sister.
Oh wow!
Who is living in America right now. She works for the government, for the army, and as we speak right now, she's on the edge. She doesn't know if she's going to be deployed to Iran, as it is. And so I grew up in a close family. My father passed away when I was 9 years old. So I only have a few years of remembering who the guy was. And just when I needed him the most, he passed on. But I had 2 brothers. And an older sister. My mom, she moved from Malawi and got married to a Zimbabwean. So she didn't have a big family because she had moved to Zimbabwe. So when my father passed on, the only family that I had known was my father's family, the father's side of family. But unfortunately, when my father passed on, there was distance that was created, for several reasons. So I grew up knowing family as just my mom and my siblings, and that was family for me. So we were very much, close. Yes. But I grew up in a community in the ghetto. It's called Mufakose. I'm from Zimbabwe, Harare. And I grew up in a town called Mufakose, which is one of the ghettos. A very hard place to grow up. But, when there is hardship, there is aspiration, there's talent. And there is not much entertainment at that point. So the only point of communication, of entertainment, was how we would communicate to each other. So we're talking of telling stories, we're talking of singing, we're talking of being creative. And so this is the environment that nurtured me. I grew up talking creativity, hearing creativity, smelling creativity, looking and seeing creativity everywhere I go. And this particular ghetto that I came from, you would see most of footballers, most of the creative industry driven people from Zimbabwe. They grew up in that space. Actually, the first theater or drama group that moved from Zimbabwe to be international came from that place, which is a big thing. So growing up, really, I was shaped by how stories were being told, because if you got in trouble, you would be sat down and you'll be told a story, and you need to pay attention to that story because that will then be your fate. So listening and then articulating, listening and then talking back, listening and then creating something in half is what I grew up, the environment that has shaped me to be the person that I am.
I'm glad you touched on stories so many times, because that was literally what I wanted to ask, because I remember the last time we were together as well, you did talk about the power of stories. I had that story about what led you to where you are today. So talk us through that. Why are stories important? And maybe you should walk us through that journey again, that story that led you from Zimbabwe down to the UK.
Okay. Stories are very important because they shape reality. And when we're talking about stories, we have two elements, the talking and the listening. So you cannot have one without the other. So when we're saying storytelling, you have the active and the passive, but the passive also is, they're always interchanged like that. So growing up in that situation, I would then listen attentively to stories and what people would be telling me. And I'll tell you something quickly. We didn't have a TV. We didn't have a TV growing up, but other households at that point they had television sets. So there were other programs which were very popular at that time, like the wrestling and all these action series that would be going on TV. So we would then go to my friend's house just down the road, and we would watch some of this, so that at school on Monday I'll also be able to be telling people sharing stories. Oh, did you see him like this? Did you see Hulk Hogan? Or did you see this? But sometimes we were not allowed to go in their house for whatever reason. Either they were having visitors, or they were eating or something. Yeah. So I would miss out on watching some of those very important programs there. So I would then ask my friends what happened, and they would then tell me. I had to listen, so that at school, when I tell the story, it's like I was the one who actually watched it. Yeah, so I had a friend of mine called Lennon Chidziva. He's now based in South Africa. He's one of the biggest DJs right now in South Africa. And when we'd finished school, and that was my first job as a DJ. So we were a duo with him. So all the time we would talk about music, listen to music, plan our sets and everything else. So on this particular day, his uncle had been deported. Had been deported from Northern Ireland. Okay. Something very, very unfortunate happened, and then he got deported. So he was living in Zimbabwe, and I remember at one point, a friend of his visited him, and he told him, he'd come to visit him from Ireland, and he was telling me about Belfast. Really, he's telling me about the streets of Belfast, telling me how they used to, play music together with my uncle's friend, and that. So when he went, I sat down with my friend's uncle, and then he started then to tell me more about that place, how he had moved from Zimbabwe to Belfast. He told me the culture, the Irish culture, what happens, what had happened within the Irish community with the troubles, the politics of the day. But he also told me their love of music, their love of having fun, and he told me some of the landmarks in there. So when these two guys were telling me this, I could then start to see myself in that space. I could imagine myself walking in the streets of Belfast on the Omer Road, or going to see the Giant's Causeway, which you should go and see, by the way, and how diverse the culture is, how it's divided between the Catholics and the Protestants, and how everything is shaped around sports as well, and everything is integrated like that. So within myself, I'd said, you know what, this story that I have heard with these two guys, I also want it to be my story, and that was the beginning of my journey. And through their connections, I managed to move to Belfast before I then moved to the mainland for my education and that. So basically, that's my version of how I managed to get to England.
Right. And it all started with the story.
It all started with the story. And I'll tell you, no word of a lie, man. I moved in this country. I had $6 in my pocket at that point, and the people that had been told to, that had been linked in my travel. At that point, you didn't need a visa. You would just go and come to the airport, and you would then explain your story. If they believe your story, they'll give you a visa. If not, they'll tell you to go back. Funny enough, they believed my story, so they said, all right, okay, these people, let me just confirm with the people. So when they called these guys said, no, we don't know him. So my story is a story of destiny, of how things are destined to be. It's a story of God, and how trusting in God can open floodgates and make impossible things possible. So that's another story of another day. But I'm just glad that I listen, and every story matters to me. If I can make that your story my story, I'll be very happy.
Well, you are a media professional. You run a media company now. Why, we've already talked about the importance of storytelling to you, but to that person who is looking to actually get into it and own their own story, what are some things that you would say, what are tips you would give such a person to say, look, this is how you actually tell better stories of your life and get more done?
Before you tell a story, you need to have the facts right. If there's someone out there who really wants to be a storyteller, you need to really own the story. The reason why it's important to tell stories is because, especially your own story, is because if you don't tell your story, someone else will. And half the time, they won't tell it as it is. And this is the story of our people, as black people. We didn't own our story, and someone else told our story on our behalf, and look what happened. Unfortunately, even most black people, they don't really know their history. So they believe, a certain version that they had, and that is the one that they run. They didn't go down to research and find out the facts. So for anyone who wants to be a storyteller, the first point of call is to understand and know your story, get the facts right, and storytelling is an art. You then have to find the right way to tell the story, the right audience to tell the story, because you can have a very good story, but if you can't deliver, if you can't execute, it won't hit that mark. I'll tell you, this one guy is called Dennis. I grew up in a community where there were storytellers. Mm-hmm. He came from a family called the Wakatamas. Those guys, the whole family, they were storytellers. They could tell you, like this guy, he would tell you one story. Okay, every time you would see him, he would tell you one story. But every time that story, it had a different hook. So either the hook was when you were starting, or in the middle, or in the end. Every time you would come up with a different hook. So what I'm saying is you need to master the skill of telling your story, especially to your audience. You know which audience and you know which hook about your story.
I like that. And zoning into your media brand, it's called Sticks and Stones Media. What's that name about? Where did that come from?
So it's called Sticks and Stones Studios. Okay, and Sticks and Stones. It's coming from a Black consciousness understanding, really, of how our people used to live, or how our people live. So if you want to start a fire, what you need is you need sticks and you need stones for the sticks to be stable. But look what happens. Every stick is coming from a different direction, coming up and meeting right at the center. And if one stick is ignited, the whole sticks will then catch the fire. And so this is where the name comes from. You and me and all these black people within the diaspora, as well as the people that support our culture and the people who support our identity, they are all part of those sticks and stones. And if you, my brother, you ignite, I am happy because I know that because I am connected within that same structure, I will also be ignited. Mm-hmm. It might be a matter of time because maybe I'm not as close to you, but because I'm part of that structure and that identity, I know my time will come, and within seconds I will also be aflame just like you. And so it's a prophetic statement to say we are all sticks and stones, and together we can make that fire, which is something that is talking about the identity of our people and of who we are. We are the people who started fire first, and look what fire does. Fire preserves life, fire gives life, fire gives warmth, and fire makes the engines and fire. So everything is centered around the unlimitedness of our creativity. And so there's quite a lot of meaning that goes to it, but it also is prophetic at that time to the structure that we wanted to be making. Because right now within Sticks and Stones we've got 5 platforms, and these platforms now they all come together as those sticks, and they are working in a way that is integrated also to be and to ignite that fire.
Good stuff. And we're going to come and talk about, more of what you do in there. But what occurs to me when you say that is, when you keep doing that, it's the idea of collaboration and working together, and that whole sense of community benefiting from each other. How much of that have you seen, as you've been building? How connected would you say the Black community has been in being supportive of each other?
It's a sad situation, to be honest. I wish I would be saying something different, but the truth of the matter is, there is a term that's called divide and rule, divide and conquer, and it's not something that was used way in our past. It's something that is currently being used within the system. What I'm trying to say is, within the system, for example, there is a tick box exercise. So if there is funding that is earmarked for the creative industry, say in Newcastle. There are silos that they look at, and unfortunately, black people, we are put in one silo. So for them to justify that there is inclusion, there has to be at least one black creative within their structure so that they tick the boxes. Now, it creates a dilemma, because if there are 4 or 5 creatives in Newcastle, it only means only one
gets the opportunity.
Now, what that then means is it creates the atmosphere of competition, and that knowing that, okay, if you do podcasts and I do podcasts, they can only
it's a problem.
There can only be one, and desperation, makes brothers fight against brother, sister against sister, bad mouthing brother against brother, and this is what I've witnessed. Our people not coming together because of desperation of maybe a resource that is scarce, or that is created, to be scarce within that system, which then creates that enmity, or not really enmity, but that sense of competition within that. So I've seen that side of things, but I've also seen a side where brothers come together, understanding that you can do something that I can't do, but I can also do something that you cannot do. In the past, I've worked with brothers and sisters who, and we have created something magical, just because we managed to align our vision and our purpose and our skills, and we have managed to come up with something that is amazing. So it's possible, but also just to to make you understand that there is also that side of things which is man-made, if I can say that. It's man-made, and it's affecting our community right now. So we see our brothers as competition, because that why is he having 50 followers, and then I only have 4 followers, and that is the algorithms. We're looking at the algorithms, and that can be a sense or a point of competition. Not trying to understand that, my brother, what did you do to get those 50, and what can I do to get those 50? So sometimes it's a lack of vision within yourself, that that I need to be on this lane, and this is my pace. If you see a brother moving at a faster pace, you think I've lost it, not knowing that your slot will take time.
Journeys are different,
paces are different, and sometimes you are on a faster pace, sometimes you are slow because you are carrying something heavy, and he is moving faster because he is carrying something light. So sometimes speed does not mean success. So it's understanding and getting comfortable in who you are, and knowing your calling, that I'm called to sell tomatoes. And if someone comes and he's selling carrots, you say, you're making profit because he's selling carrots, but that's not my calling. I can help you sell your carrots, but I know I'm waiting for my tomatoes. But sometimes we want something that is trending, and we jump into other people's land, and we trip ourselves, or we trip other people, and at the end of the day, we are destroying our own image, because when the outsiders or when other people look, they don't know that you're from Nigeria, they don't know that I'm from Zimbabwe. All they know is that you are black.
Two black people going at it.
And sometimes, we are our worst enemies, especially within the media industry, because the algorithms the statistics are there. You can look and right now and see them as they are, and that can be a cause of pain for other people. So it's also helping our people to have that psychological understanding, or to have that stamina of thought and understanding to see where they are and their journey. And this is part of Sticks and Stones, also trying to help people to navigate their purpose and to be comfortable within their lane as they are growing as a business.
Give me 30 seconds to interrupt your interview very quickly. The reason I make these videos is because for far too long, the African story has been told by other people but us. And so, at Critical Factor, the core goal is to spotlight African excellence wherever it is across the world. And if that is something that resonates with you, please support the channel by simply subscribing to the channel and, of course, sharing this so that other people can see it. And without saying too much, let's get back to the interview.
I like the bits about people sticking to their lane. However, what occurs to me as you say that is also to say, is there a real solution to that then? Because, I mean, one of the examples you gave was, two people who are in the podcast space, for instance. Do we see ourselves as rivals? Do we see ourselves as, well, just two people doing their thing, regardless? How do we foster collaboration within the African community? Is there something you've seen that works, or is that something you would advise that would work to help foster a sense of collaboration right now rather than competition?
I've seen a few things, and I thank God for that experience. And there is quite a lot that people need to understand when it comes to collaboration. Unfortunately, people don't collaborate within the Black communities because they gatekeep an idea, and if I have this idea, I don't want to share it with you because I don't trust you, and I think you will take it and run away with it because maybe you've got the facilities or the funding to do it. So I would rather gatekeep it until I raise money, which is maybe 5 years or 10 years or never. And that idea,
the idea is no longer relevant.
But collaboration works if you are happy for an idea to proceed or to go along even without yourself. If an idea is good, it shouldn't be good just for you, because that's being selfish. If an idea or a project is good, if it's good for the community, even if it's you who's doing it, I should support it because it's not about me. It's about the community.
The greater good.
Once you gatekeep an idea, you have to ask yourself, is it about me? Is it about my company, or it's about me? So what I have seen is I have shared ideas with people, and I have helped people, and this is what we do. We help other businesses as well to grow their ideas, but also being honest with them that, listen, this is too big an idea for yourself. You need to collaborate with A, B, C, D to make it work. And this is my message now to the Black community, especially those within the same space doing the same thing. Look how the world operates. Right now, if you're talking about airlines, they, for example, KLM and Air France, they're owned by the same people, even though they are two different brands. So they survive in the aviation industry as two different, but they are owned by the same people. What am I saying? I'm saying you do podcast, I do podcast. If we have an idea or if we have a project, we can make that project work even though we are coming from two offices. Now, the Bible says a three-chorded string is
three strands is strong.
Which means if we collaborate and we have this idea, we're working it together, it means you are bringing your best skills into that, and I'm bringing my best skills into that. Now, we have a super structure together because we are bringing the best of ourselves into that. Which is better, which is much better than for you to do it, by yourself. But we have our people would rather do that and get, the little glory that you get, and you swim in your glory, rather than collaborate with someone and share the glory. So the dynamics are are depressing if you look at it like that, but the possibilities are so inspirational that if we look at the possibilities and how we can collaborate and we can pool resources together, and if you're looking at finding at funders, they would rather people collaborate, and they will give you more attention if you collaborate, because they know that you are stronger if you share the responsibilities or the
larger entity.
Yeah.
Awesome. I mean, we're gradually touching on some bits of this as we wrap it, but you are building a primarily Afrocentric brand in a predominantly white society. How difficult has that been for you? I mean, how have you found that?
It's been difficult at first because people think you're racist. If you say I am representing the black voices, some of the initial reaction is, why black, why not white? But if you then sit down with them and make them understand that, all right, if you look at the British media, you would see the underrepresentation of the black community within that space, or black products within that space, and how black people are being starved off products within the media space that is original, or that appeals to them more than the white community. They will then start to understand that, yeah, you know what, BBC, for example, yes, we are starting to see black faces reading the news and presenting, but the bulk of the content, is it really edible, or is it what our people want to eat? You would find that it's not. So talking to people about why you are doing what you're doing makes them understand that you are not being racist, but you are trying to level up something that is underrepresented, and you want to give a voice into the voiceless as it is, or to make a certain community visible that has not been visible, either through ignorance or through structural setting as it is.
I have heard, and I've actually literally seen this happen, where black founders would not put their faces on their websites, or would adopt Western names just so they can be accepted. Is it something you've seen happen? And I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
It's depressing because what founders do is a reflection of the society, or the community, the black community. What I'm trying to say is, yes, it's happening, and we can see it within some of the founders, but the problem really is with the community itself. It's a disease that's rampaging in our community. People, when they move to the Western world, they tend to change their identity. Why? Because they get ashamed of their identity. They change their names because their names sound African, and maybe sounding African is not a thing. And sometimes it's trying to beat the system that, if my name for maybe a CV sounds African, I might lose out. And so our people then start to do all these things of changing names and that. And it's affecting really what it does really, it kills your business, and it kills the confidence that you have about yourself. If someone is looking at you and knowing that this is what you do and you've done, they see that there is an element within yourself that is low self-esteem. And so I can only encourage our people to embrace our identity and your identity as it is.
Own it.
And own it. I've got 2 long names, and at no point have I thought of changing the names, but it's a point of conversation when I introduce myself, because people would then try to say, if they say it wrong, I will then say, this is how you pronounce it. It's from Zimbabwe and this is how it means. So I use that as a point of conversation starting and educating people about our identity, and this is something that we need to teach our children, really, because I also I have children, and it's something that I noticed, and all of my children, they've got Zimbabwean names within them. They've got several names each, but we push a certain name forward, and this is to engrave within them that your name and your identity, they are the same thing. You can't change your name, you can't change your identity. You have to own it, and you have to learn to sell yourself as a product, as a brand.
You talked about self-esteem briefly there, but have you ever felt self-doubt at any point?
Yes.
How did you deal with that?
I always do. And this is because I've always been pushing to do something that has not been done before. And when you know that this works, when you have a vision that this is what I want to do, and you look around you and you don't see it, sometimes that doubt comes through and say, why is there not something like this? Why is not something or someone done it before? That's where that little voice comes and says, you can't be the first one to do it. You cannot be the first one to do it. Your whole family has not done it before. So there is that voice of doubt that comes through. But the way I've always dealt with it is to go back to who I am and to what God has impressed in my spirit when I was a young boy, when I started to be in touch with my spirituality. There are certain visions and there are certain statements that stuck into my heart, and I've always referred to these scriptures or these verses or these conversations I had with God, and it is through those conversations then that will keep me rooted and grounded, that listen, even if someone has not done this before, because God said it at that time, or I have that confirmation within me 5-10 years ago, this is how I've managed to come up with doubt. Obviously, over time, when you conquer one mountain and then another one comes, that confidence of conquering and climbing mountains, when you see another mountain, you are not afraid now. You say, this is just as the other one, or this is actually smaller than the other one. So I would then advise people to climb mountains and do that as a hobby, because life is all about climbing mountains. You cannot back off just because there's a mountain there, even if there is a voice that's bringing that self-doubt and low self-esteem at some point. We all go through it, especially as creatives, because you're thinking, this is a brilliant idea, I don't have the funds. How is it possible that I can actually achieve? And that can be a source of doubt. But collaboration, having brothers talking about it, God always finds a way to send the right word, either with the next people or the next set of people, the next guy, the next. So having a close connection with God and having a close connection within the brothers, it can help when you are in doubt. Really.
I love that. And I would say, as we kind of literally wrap this up, what does the next few years hold for Sticks and Stones?
We are actually at a phase where we are reintroducing ourselves. Mm-hmm. Why I'm saying that is because we are a platform that uses multimedia platforms to communicate, or as a medium of thought or expression. Okay, and over time we've been building different silos of media So the first one that we did build was a magazine. That's for 5 years now. We've been producing a bi-monthly magazine talking about the black people, the lifestyle, especially of the diaspora within the Northeast. That's the magazine itself. And we have also developed, it's called Channel TBX, which is the film and the video side of storytelling. So the first one is publication, which is print, media, and digital. The second one is film, and we have also, we developed what's called One T's Radio. That's another platform that we have also developed with the radio station, and it's talking about us. That's another platform that we have built. We have also built what's called the Community Music Hub, which is a recording studio, and we've also created what's called the Redeemed Wear. Now, this is a fashion brand that is communicating through what we wear. So all these different platforms, we've been operating them separately over the years, and the main purpose for these platforms is to communicate, or they are tailored to start conversations, either within ourselves or with the rest of the world. So this is what we've been doing. So the next few years, it's how we are integrating all those into one function. So this is where we are looking at. We're looking at getting into more of new radio. Okay. We're getting more into films, because we know some of our people, they don't like reading. So if you can't read it in a magazine, you can always look and listen through a podcast. But if you don't like podcasts, you can always listen to it through a song. And if you don't like a song, you can always, listen to it through a radio station.
So whatever it is, you
don't like it, you have to wait or see someone wearing it, and it will be the same message. Amazing. So one message can be within 5 platforms, and this is what we are driving at. It's a integrated creative ecosystem that we are creating. And we are hoping also to be part of the larger ecosystem within the Northeast, and also collaborating and working with people like yourselves. Brilliant. Knowing that, we are stronger together, and we are hoping to share our experiences. There's been quite a lot of mistakes that we have made. And we are looking to teach people not to make the same mistakes, especially within the media space. Okay. So a lot of that is what we are looking to be doing, going forward, especially in the next coming years. Okay.
As a closing tradition, we ask all our guests what they think is the critical factor to success in their journey. So if there was one word or one phrase you would say has been the critical factor to your success, what would that be?
Being in touch with my spirituality. That has been very, very critical.
Amazing.
I can give you examples, but before everything else, you need to know that you are a spirit that possesses a soul, and that lives in a body. So you are not a body, and you are not a soul. You possess a soul, but you are not a soul. You are a spirit. So the critical factor within myself is to understand who I am spiritually, and then to move in that space as a spirit.
I like that. And everything else just flows from there.
Exactly.
Awesome. Kuda, it's been amazing having you on the show. Thank you for your time. And we'll keep looking forward to the amazing things Sticks and Stones will do in the future.
Thank you so much for having me. And you're doing amazing. I'm glad I've met you, and I hope to be working with you and your team. And to be honest, I'm quite impressed by the level of quality that you guys have. And I can just share straight away that if you are black, quality matters, because you are judged by the quality of your work. You have to be 10 times, sometimes 100 times more than the next person, just because you're black. So quality is one thing that you guys don't compromise, and I've seen that.
Appreciate
and keep
it.
on doing that. Keep on raising the flag up.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
We'll keep doing it together.
Thank you.
Awesome.